GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is Wednesday, the 5th of March. Let's jump straight into the Bitcoin price, and we can see that from where we were yesterday, Bitcoin has put on a fairly nice move to the upside. We are now coming back towards the $90,000 level. If we just actually look from the low to the high, we can see that is a nice ran about a sort of $9,500 move or 11.5% move on Bitcoin. So pretty nice price action from yesterday. And what I think is we're probably now starting to front run Friday. Friday is obviously going to be this White House crypto summit. And obviously this was announced at the end of last week by Donald Trump's crypto czar. So here you go. It's going to be on Friday, the 7th of March, and will include prominent founders, CEOs, and investors from the crypto industry. So I think this is likely to be front run. Okay, what is the most bullish news that can be announced? It will probably be something around Bitcoin reserve and some sort of indication of actually going out and buying Bitcoin, some sort of actually plan in place to actually accumulate and buy Bitcoin. The problem with this is surely they're going to need this to get passed through some sort of Congress process. And I just can't see them going out and rushing out and buying, billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin right away. So it's a bit of a tough one. It's the same around XRP. I can't really see them going out and just buying up a load of XRP tomorrow, for example. It's probably going to have to go through some sort of legal process. There'll be plenty of debate, and will it actually happen is my thoughts. I'm not entirely sure whether we will ever actually see this crypto reserve with the likes of XRP, Cardano, Solana in it. It would only really make sense, in my opinion, to keep what should be or what is being proven to be a store of value, i.e. Bitcoin, in this reserve. So we can see Bitcoin, like I say, probably getting a bounce into that event. Obviously, we do have here some resistance around this 90,000 level. So obviously coming into some underside resistance from this previous trading range. And from here, let's see, potentially prices can remain elevated, push a little bit higher, maybe up to around about 92. If we look at the liquidation heat map, we can see we do have some liquidity here coming up to 92,000. So potentially the price wants to come up a little bit higher, trap any or take out any shorts that are actually short from 90,000 by moving up to around about 92. Potentially we come in to reconnect with this trend line that we've hit 1, 2, 3, 4 times already. So quite a strong downtrend now in play. And from there, I would be expecting us probably to roll over to the downside. So just looking at the daily chart then, nothing has really changed. Obviously, a lot of volatility right now, but I would personally be expecting prices to come back down and retest the lows at some point. If we actually go onto the weekly in terms of a longer term view, you can see that we do have support very close to the price. This is our 50-week moving average, this red moving average coming up. And obviously, this is a moving average that we held over the summer. We also held this moving average last bull run when we had that sort of mid-cycle correction, albeit a significant correction. And we actually met with our 50-week. So potentially, if prices do come back down to the lows and chop for a couple of months, you will actually see this 50-week moving average get pulled up, reconnect with the price, and then I would be saying from there, it really is make or break time. We really would need to see Bitcoin start to put a move on to the upside. If we just look at the other path I've drawn, another possibility is that we actually come down a lot earlier, i.e. this month after the crypto summit, we actually come down another wave of selling and actually connect with that 50-week moving average this week or next week. And then we see a big reaction, a little bit of chop, putting in some higher lows, and then we start to move off and up again and look to actually re-get or get back up to all-time highs sooner before the summer. So Yeah, these are really my two most likely paths here. Either we spend the summertime sort of chopping through this range and make our way gradually up higher for a run later on in the year, or maybe that happens sooner. Obviously, what we don't want to see is we don't want to see this path play out where we lose this 50-week moving average. If we do lose the 50-week moving average, then I do believe, well, we will almost certainly come into the Gaussian channel. If we actually get a close into the Gaussian channel, it's very, very likely that we do actually pop back out the other end of the channel and fall through it. And then you could see prices coming down to 30,000. I should say that that scenario right there, that is really, really only going to occur if we do go into a recession or a bear market for the stock market. So I think that is the least likely right now, but obviously it's something that we need to talk about. We need to be fully aware of what are the downside risks of investing in this market right now. And for me, the invalidation is going to be this 50-week moving average that is currently trading around about sort of 67,000. A move down to here would obviously flush this low. Potentially we get a wick a little bit lower, sort of coming into some of the tops from last year, from early last year in the when we sort of made the tops in obviously March before that summer consolidation. So potentially we sort of backtest the top of that range as well. And then Bitcoin can look to find a footing. Hopefully some demand comes into the market. We start to see some volume coming back as stock markets, I presume, will need to be pushing higher again for us to actually see Bitcoin start to stabilize and go higher. We've really seen Bitcoin this cycle trade like a macro asset, pretty much a beta play to the S&P. And if we look at stocks today, we can see that the S&P, just go down to the 4 hour, we can see that the stock market is still under pressure. So what we've done is we've actually broken down from this longer term trend line here. This is going all the way back, I think, to 2022, 2023 even. And we touched it last year and we have actually lost it. We've also wicked below the January lows. So if we actually get a close below this January low, then we could see a similar move play out on the S&P to what we've seen on Bitcoin. Obviously, when Bitcoin lost its January lows, it then ran to the downside pretty aggressively. We saw some big moves, and potentially this could happen on the S&P as well. So this is going to be a really, really critical and crucial level for us to defend on the stock market. Obviously, a move down lower, potentially we could come as low as 5,539. I think anything around the 5,530s is definitely a possibility. If things get really bad, then you could be looking at the low 5,000s. And obviously, that is going to put more pressure on Bitcoin. But I just want to add here, if we actually sort of have a look at that drawdown, that would be a double digit, a 10% drawdown. Nothing too sort of crazy, nothing too unordinary to expect this, especially given some of the current shifts we're seeing, policy changes from the Trump administration. And if we go down to the lower target, that would be 16%. That's still not quite bear market sort of conditions or bear market levels of retracement, but obviously that would be a pretty major correction. I expect things would get bought up very, very quickly from there. So we're currently on the 200-day moving average that the market is trying to hold, but below that we've got the 50-week moving average on the S&P as well, coming in around about sort of 5,670. So sort of do we get down there? I think if we break this range, we'd probably come a little bit lower than that. And that's why I've got this level here around about 5,500. Maybe we come down to the 100-week. That's down at 5,200. So look, it's really all speculation right now. I have no idea where this market's going to go, but I would be very surprised if we don't get back to these highs within the next year. And therefore, I would be treating anything, I mean, a 10% drawdown on the S&P is probably a decent buying opportunity. So obviously, what we just need to be aware of is how is this going to impact crypto? If the stock market does keep falling, it's very hard to see Bitcoin putting on a move higher, and you'd expect cryptos just to continue to bleed. Obviously, We've got the Nasdaq as well, and the next support for me would actually be this long-term trend line. That this was a bit lower on the Nasdaq due to seeing a larger sell-off in the middle of last year, so it's got a lower trend line here, and we are still safely above that, but potentially we could come down to this level. That would be our 50% retracement from last summer. And this would be a nice area, I think, to pick up some cues around about sort of 19,700. So I'll be looking for us to come into that level on the S&P, sorry, on the Nasdaq, and that is around our 50-week moving average again. So yeah, and if we lost that, then probably back down to the 100-week and this level here, which is around 18,300. So yeah, a lot to keep an eye on here. The one positive we do have is that the dollar is breaking down. So it looks like it's fully losing all support here, and there is some support from this 200-day moving average and this descending trend line coming in. But so I would expect the dollar probably does get a bit of a bounce here, but this is looking like it's going into a downtrend. And if we look at the weekly, we can see we have now fallen back into this range, which is good. And this is probably a response from the market starting to front run rate cuts. So you'll also notice that we have the 10-year yield coming down as well. This has put in now a lower high and lower lows here. So this is looking like it's starting to reverse. This is very much an administration policy. The Trump administration are looking to bring yields down and try and get rates down as well. This is obviously going to be positive for bonds. Lower rates should be positive for risk assets. We just really need to see how things play out and develop with all of these Trump tariff headlines, should I say. And yeah, we should know more about those over the next few days. It's a really a news-driven market right now, and trying to make really sort of big bets one way or the other is probably not the way to go just at the moment. You want to remain nimble. I'm personally still sat on a lot of cash, so I feel a lot safer just being in cash whilst a lot of this volatility plays out. And like I say, I'm waiting for potential further levels to get hit, or for us to see a little bit more in terms of things starting to turn around before making too many major moves. So I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, I've covered Ethereum and Solana in other videos, but really all the attention right now has to be on Bitcoin. Everything's going to trade with Bitcoin right now. We can obviously see that Ethereum is on a bounce today, but it's not bouncing as aggressively at Bitcoin. It's still struggling to really push away from support here, which is a negative sign for Ethereum. So I still think Ethereum can come down lower. I'm still not really interested in buying Ethereum here, even though it looks cheap, it feels cheap. For me, it's not, because just a couple of years back, it was down at around 1,000, and right now it's still above $2,000. So I think we still can go lower. Ethereum can go home, as has been said by other YouTubers. And you've got Solana here, and Solana just looks really weak as well. It's losing this trend. It's already, had plenty of candles below it. So I do think Solana probably comes down to 100 at some point over the next few weeks, and that will certainly tie in with the stock market going a bit lower, Bitcoin going a bit lower. But it really depends what Bitcoin does. I mean, it's hard to see us not at least coming down to this 120 level on Solana. I still think it's very hard to see Bitcoin not coming down a bit further, and the stock market also sort of making another leg lower potentially, whilst some of this sort of political uncertainty, shall we say, gets resolved. So just going back to Bitcoin, nothing really changes. This is my most sort of probable path, either something like this or with a sweep sort of down to the mid 70s. But that is what I'm expecting for Bitcoin over the next sort of few weeks. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I will talk to you all again on the next one. GM, GM, GM.